The debate between literature and modern non-printed media is a very, very big deal in our society today. There's a lot of passion from both sides. You'll see it between people who are reading books, people who love to read printed material, and you'll see it from people who absolutely hate printed material and refuse to read anything that is written on a physical page. Now, there is a lot of misinformation that comes from both sides. You'll see people on the digital side of media. They will talk about all the downsides of printed media, and they'll try to focus on how they are greater and better and more modern than anything else out there. And then sometimes even the printed media people will do the same exact thing, spreading lies, telling people, and then no one knows exactly what to believe. And then, now that modern society is moving towards this modern, futuristic, technological media, we have people focusing on that area and only consuming that kind of media. When they're only consuming that kind of media, there's a lot of manipulation that can occur. There's a lot of bad data, bad statistics, completely false words spoken on the media, and everyone will just believe it as it is because that is the only thing they will consume. Now, our platform for what needs to be done is that people need to be reading more, because there are a lot of great things that printed media can provide. There are statistics that say that people reading literature, reading printed material is just dropping drastically, and that definitely needs to change, because there are a lot of studies that have shown that written word can help the human mind and help human society as a whole. One of those big things is that it gives people time to reflect on what they have consumed. So when people watch a news channel or they read a social media post, they only consume that for maybe 10 minutes at most. But they don't get the kind of time that when reading a book, you can reflect on what you have just read and think about it. You simply have to accept it as true and move on, and that's not the kind of society that we need today. Then, it also gives you greater detail, because when you're reading a book, you can be more patient. You have to allot a very large amount of time to read things like scholarly journals and literature. And by doing that, you can get a lot more detail. You can figure out what is going on, and you can understand it significantly better. Next, you can be much more confident in accuracy. When it comes to information that you're reading online, it's almost like a flip of a coin, maybe even worse, in whether the statistics that they give you are actually going to be true. With a book, there's a much higher standard for information. The people who are writing down these bits of data and information, they had to go through editors and publishers. They had to go through swaths of things to get all of this down. So you can have a greater confidence that what you read has much more truth to it. Then, studies have also shown that when it comes to reading, we also are better at memorizing things. When I know this personally, this happens to me. When I read something that is online, or I try to get information from some sort of non-printed material, I have a real difficult time trying to recollect what I had read or what I had seen. Like with a YouTube video, I normally can't remember what happened for that 5-minute video, but if I read a textbook and I read maybe 2 chapters, I can tell you probably 80% of the stuff that I read from the textbook. When it comes to printed material and digital media, they all have to have their place in the world. That's fine. But we need to let people know that the printed media is important, and we need people to be reading physical books, physical journals, physical printed material that they can touch and that their brain will benefit from.
Thank you, Dylan. We need to stop believing the propaganda and lies that we get from media every day. Instead, question everything media portrays and start reading books. From Catherine Flowen. Literature versus media. A writer may describe an expression of a character the way it is intended to be perceived, whereas in a visual of the same scene, the viewer may perceive the expression in a much different way. We are the viewers, people. Maybe instead of believing all of the racial and sexist allegations happening in the upcoming election, we should read the facts about them, not what CNN is trying to say. Since I'm feeling patriotic today, here is a video of Anderson Cooper getting caught trying to protect Hillary Clinton by facts in this week's video montage.
Hillary Clinton blamed the victim. Number 101 when you're dealing with rape cases, don't blame the victim. She blamed a 12-year-old girl, a 6th grade 12-year-old girl, of seeking the attention of older men and fantasizing about being with older men. There is audio.
Wait, we haven't corroborated any of this, so I mean, I just think you should be very.
It's widely reported. It's widely reported.
Widely reported. So is the National Enquirer. Widely reported. Widely reported doesn't mean anything. It's not on this network, I would point out.
Hillary Clinton had accused her of some sort of culpability in her own attack.
Widely reported. Widely reported doesn't mean anything. It's not on this network, I would point out. Wait, we haven't corroborated any of this.
Clinton wrote of the victim, "I have been informed that the complainant is emotionally unstable with a tendency to seek out older men and engage in fantasizing."
Wait, we haven't corroborated any of this. It's not on this network, I would point out.
Mrs. Clinton seems to admit she knew the defendant was guilty.
Wait, we haven't corroborated any of this. It's not on this network, I would point out.
Took a lot of different tests. I had to tolerate. When she passed, she forever destroyed my faith in tolerance.
It's not on this network, I would point out.
4 decades ago, before she was a possible presidential candidate, before she was even Hillary Clinton, Hillary Rodham was a 27-year-old trial lawyer in Arkansas with a southern drawl and big ambitions.
It's not on this network, I would point out.
She was asked by a judge to defend a 42-year-old man accused of raping a 12-year-old girl.
It's not on this network, I would point out.
Now, Clinton was able to plea bargain down the sentence to just 1 year in prison, which was then reduced to time served. But the victim, who is now 52 years old, is speaking out to the Daily Beast and saying that one of the most famous women in the world put her through hell.
It's not on this network, I would point out.
She also has a message now for the former Secretary of State.
It's not on this network, I would point out. Wait, we haven't corroborated any of this.
This video illustrates the real need to only rely on published articles and books. You can read a book, then put it on a bookshelf. 50 years later, that book's going to read the exact same. In contrast, media will flip on you in a second. In an article by Lukowitz, the internet and social media have enabled consumers to be content creators. The internet gives us a vast amount of information. But how reliable is that information if people are allowed to alter the content? Also from Lukowitz, in 1980, there were around 2,000 published magazines. There are reported 10,000 magazines today. Magazines and other forms of published media are the only way to ensure accurate information. If we don't start reading published articles and books, media will take control of who becomes our next president. Without proper insight to who are the candidates, as what is going on, the United States could be a dictatorship. Here's Evan Brazil.
Thank you, AJ. Taking that into consideration and focusing on what Dylan pointed out, it is very clear that printed media is a must-have. It comes down to simple economics. The demand for a product is everything, and without that demand, there's almost no need for supply. As consumers, we have a massive impact on the market, an impact that it seems many people forget. Nearly overnight, the customer segment can make or break a supplier's market. This impact can be seen in the printed media market and is a prevalent factor in the issue of dwindling physical publication. It is our job as consumers to fix this. We need to take action by supporting the market in printed media. The consumption of media, especially in the midst of a political election, it is an integral part of nearly everyone's daily life. Don't we want this consumption to be fulfilling and to not simply be shortened down to cater to weak attention spans or influenced to fit a biased agenda of the publisher? In order to be fulfilling, this consumption should be tangible, the sort of tangibility that only printed media can give you. Tangible media not only eliminates the detachment from reading, a detachment that removes the personification from the article being read, nearly completely disassociating the reader from the author, but it also eliminates the possibility of receiving just partial information. By dismissing the use of digital media as the sole source of information and relying instead on printed media that has actual effort put towards its existence, we can lead this country to a more informed and intellectually based prosperity. We must stop basing our opinions just off of digitally published articles and social media bias, and instead turn to physically printed and well thought out media such as books, newspapers, and journals. While these sources, yes, are available in digital form online, they are washed over in a flood of millions of quickly written posts from the sea of news websites. Websites that take very little pride in their publications, allowing their authors to write up a post and publish it within minutes with no regards to ramifications. The solution here lies within the hands of the reader, and it's the responsibility of any American citizen to be informed. Without proper information and the right research, how can we as citizens take part in our country's politics? Without understanding the ins and outs of how our process works, we are left with only what we are given through the eyes of somebody else. Bookstores exist for a reason, and even through their dwindling numbers, there are still plenty of stores with printed media available for consumption. We're calling to arms the American population to not just succumb to digital media's stronghold on the market, but possess the need for information, and to not just rely on what is trending online to find this information. So pick up a book, a journal, a magazine, pick up any piece of literature, and learn from it. Restore the connection between the author and the reader. A disconnect that is leading today's generations to a sense of non-digital illiteracy. With the 2016 election of major prevalence in today's media, and with the amount of information just floating around online through social media, online news websites, and public blogs, the opinions of just a few reach the minds of millions in a short time. Taking information solely from an online presence can make it difficult to weed through what is fact and what is not. So challenge yourself. For every article you read online, find a piece of printed media to further your understanding and eliminate any potential bias. When researching a topic, utilize primarily printed media rather than digital media, and take the time to read the entire print, understanding the effort put into the article by the author. Immerse yourself in this printed media. Read old books, look at old newspaper articles, pick up a history textbook, and take in the tangible evidence to ensure that you're getting the whole story. Make it a goal to not only settle for poorly written online articles that circulate through social media, and fight your way through outside of what is just trending and do your own research. We've got to find the hunger for more information before we can know the full story behind the topics that affect our daily lives. We don't want future generations to settle, so why should we? It starts with just one book. Restore the connection today. I'll now turn it over to Ethan.
In order to understand our proposal, we need to look at the benefits books offer. Catherine Ploen, an advocate of our argument, believes that written narratives offer a unique perspective that the reader digests and contemplates the content at the same time and at his or her own pace. If people seek out more information from books, they will have the chance to form their own opinions about a topic. Our proposal will lead to more informed and well-rounded society that will not have their views tainted by agenda that the media may be trying to push. Compared to other sources of information, books present a more complete and detailed story. Other sources often just skim the surface and may leave out important details that leave us with only a partial understanding. If we decide to make books our main source of information, then we will have a better grasp on the whole picture. Books help us paint that picture by explaining why certain events took place or why someone said what they said, because we get a sense of what led up to those events. This is definitely useful in our current situation where we are trying to decide who we will vote for in the presidential election. Because writing a book takes a lot of work and the author has to have a depth of knowledge about the topic, we propose that books are better resources for research and study material. Implementing this idea would ensure that we are getting accurate information from a credible source. Other sources of information may allow anonymous users to add information that may not have been fact-checked. Additionally, books are a better alternative in regards to studying. Ferris Jabir, writer for Scientific American, explains that paper books have a more obvious topography than on-screen text. This means that books are easier to navigate and that the reader can more easily focus on a single page of a paper book without losing sight of the whole text. So when studying from a paper book, the reader will be able to visualize where certain information was in the book. This is beneficial because when a reader is able to develop a mental map of the text, they can recall information faster. Students who take this approach will find their studying to be more efficient. In 2013, at the University of Stavanger in Norway, Anne Mangan conducted a study by giving a group of 10th grade students with similar reading capabilities a story to read and then tested their comprehension of the material. The study found that those who read from the actual book did better than those who read from an on-screen computer or mobile device. The study suggests that navigating an actual book is less cognitively taxing, which allows for increased comprehension. In a time where education is so highly valued and kids are accepted into universities based on their ACT score, books provide the best chance for students to achieve their educational goals. Additionally, in 2015, Robert Dooley, contributor for Forbes magazine, writes about a study done at Temple University. The researchers used an fMRI brain scan to monitor how the brain reacts to digital messages versus paper messages. The study found that when using paper, subjects reviewed the messages for a longer period of time, they had a greater emotional reaction, and they were able to recall the information faster, showing a greater subconscious desire for the on-paper message. This type of information will help to bring up test scores because the students will be able to quickly remember key information. Teachers can also benefit in the situation that they have a student who is falling behind. The teacher can offer advice to the parents about a more efficient way of studying. If we continue to derive our information from other media outlets, then we may have a large part of the population whose views will be shaped mainly by what they are told. People could end up heavily biased by media before they are able to gather all the facts. Additionally, by not relying on literature, we expose ourselves to possible misinformation. The value and accuracy of information in books needs to be realized, or we may end up placing too much faith in sites like Wikipedia that do not always fact-check information that is posted.
A problem we have today in our society is which is better, reading a printed material book or reading media online. Some might argue either way, media is better or paper book. Specifically within news stories, we see reporters reporting anything from lies, the truth, etc. And the major thing we see today is in the current presidential election. Whether you want to believe what you hear or don't believe it, it depends on which station, because each station is biased towards one side or the other. So in reality, the media might be actually hurting the world rather than helping it. And we see it in Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, etc. All these different social media types of sources have different ways of spreading the news. And each one might say something small, with a small difference or a large difference, that might get you to believe one way or the other. Reading a book can be more reliable rather than seeing what you see on the internet. Because anything on the internet, like I said before, can be made up as posted by any one of us in a blog post that's just our thoughts. Rather than if you read a printed material such as an encyclopedia or a different research material book, it's a proven fact almost, and it's edited by actual editors, and it's proven information. So going off of that, when you have proven information, when you read an actual book, it helps you in many different ways, including studies have shown that your intelligence goes up as it helps a different source of the brain power function in a different way, and that helps that in that case, rather than reading something online, which some studies say actually hurts the brain more than it helps if you read it for a certain amount of time. And a big problem I have myself is when I read something online or on some type of electronic screen for an extended period of time, it kind of gets your eyes to water and hurt. And if you're just reading a straight up book, I don't have the same problem. And for me, when I was studying, I'd rather read pages and flip through the pages on printed material for just that case, because it helps me focus more and not have to worry about getting distracted, going on a different website that has nothing to do with the schoolwork I'm trying to complete. As far as anything else goes, a printed book also helps me paint the image inside my head, whether it's studying or just reading a fictional story. I mean, you can create that kind of image inside your head while reading and going through the story, rather than if it's electronically made. You have most websites have an actual image there for you, and you don't have I don't have the same value of reading it online that I do on a printed material. And you see that with the ebooks today, whether it's a Kindle. For example, the Kindles, I think some people would rather read off the Kindle because it's just easier to carry and easier to remember, but for some people, they'd rather flip through the pages and not have to worry about maybe charging the Kindle. I mean, if you have the book in front of you, you don't have to worry about battery power and such as those problems you have. But I mean, for me, I'd rather have the book and then paint that image, because for me that helps me focus more and see the value in that. And you see that as well with newspapers, and you see how newspapers are kind of going more out of business than what they used to be, as they're all being posted online. In that case, and I think a major problem we see that in everyone's generation, with adults, teenagers, young kids, and I think we can take action by that by starting to realize the true value in reading, rather than just. I mean, I think a major problem is one might not read because they might be afraid of what someone else might think of them, because they think it's now everyone's reading online. They might think it's kind of an outsider thing to do, read an actual printed image. So for me, I think the first action is maybe being that person to pick up the book and not being afraid of reading in front of others, and I'll get other people to start reading. And whether it's just starting, I guess maybe a small book club with 2 friends, and then going from there, inviting others into that, and just moving on from there. I mean, and then as well as that goes, reading can reduce stress, helps you relax more, reading a story, and then helps you. Studies have shown how if reading a book before you go to bed can also make you sleep easier. So I think all these kind of things show the true value in reading and how well it can help us more than reading something online for an extended period of time, which kind of hurts the society, and everyone just believes what they see online, and everything's not true. And we see that in multiple cases with the type of media leaning a certain way, being biased towards another person or another campaign, in this case the presidential election. So here I'll leave you in the words of Dr. Seuss: the more that you read, the more that you read, the more things you'll know, and the more that you learn, the more places you'll go.